am calling to order the city council study session for Monday, March 7th. First up that we'll be talking about is the Consumers Energy Project update. Do we have a representative here? Pardon me?
Oh, no. I didn't know if you had to call roll call.
Well, I mean,
Hello,
yeah, sure.
can you
Oh,
hear
just
me?
give me 1 second, Craig. 1 second so we can do roll call real fast.
Okay,
Thank you.
Roll call, Mayor Garrett,
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Cantor.
Present.
Councilmember Jennings,
President.
Councilmember Miller,
Here.
Councilmember Canes. And Mayor, you have the.
Thank you. Okay, is it Craig that's here from Consumers Energy?
yes, good evening. My name is Craig Titsworth. I'm a senior field leader for Consumers Energy that oversees in charge of contractor oversight. I oversee the contractors doing the underground gas for consumers across the state. Sorry, hey, to start out.
It's okay. Craig, 1 second, because we are having an audio difficulties because we cannot hear you clearly. Okay, you want to try it again, Craig? Nope, I can't hear you at all if you're talking.
All right, can you hear me better now? I had earbuds in, I took them out. Is that any
That's
better?
better. Yeah, that's better.
Okay, sorry about that. Everybody's home, so I was trying to hide in the basement and be quiet a little bit. I can start over. My name is Craig Titsworth. I'm a senior field leader for Consumers Energy in charge of contractor oversight. I see the underground gas contractors across the state of Michigan. First, I'd like to start out by apologizing for not being there. It's about an hour and 15 minutes from my house, so I didn't know how the weather was going to be. We had sleet and freezing rain about 30 minutes ago up here, so I didn't know exactly how that was going to go. But
No problem. Understand.
I guess we also have on the call, we have Matt Lewis and Ted Schauger from MUE on the call that have joined us. They are more detailed to the specific project and the work that's been going on out there. That would be, so I had invited them to the call so that they could talk directly about this specific job. And I guess I was really just, I read the emails. I tried to be there in person, but what I was seeing was I didn't see anything direct. Normally, if there's a complaint or something's going on, I normally see it, but I wasn't seeing anything. So I apologize. I didn't find out about this until last Friday and last Thursday night, I believe. And we had crews out there on Friday or Thursday, however the days panned out, to do some restoration and try to clean things up. So I guess I'm really going to open it up to you guys to see what your questions and concerns are and see if I can help answer those. If not, if I can't answer them, I know Matt and Ted can. So I'm going to turn it over to you guys for your questions and concerns.
Well, I appreciate that, Craig. So we will start off with one, and I guess I should only speak for myself, is that I did not know anything about the Consumers Energy Project. It was only happened to be on perusing one night of the Facebook and see that there was numerous complaints about it. So not knowing about the project, the way that our residents' lawns and property are looking is pretty bad. And so is where we want to know the project update, what's, exactly what's going on, when it plans on when it's going to be ended. And then also the plan that is for restoring residents' property to the way that it was before consumers came.
All right. I can start out with, I double checked on that because I did see that in the email because Consumers Energy usually sends out flyers and notices prior to the start of any project. I followed up with our designer and our coordinator on that specific question. They said they sent out flyers on 10/26 of last year saying of of upcoming work that would be starting in December or January. So that I would like to actually verify that they sent those out, because I've had times where they told me they sent them out and nobody's been aware, like you guys are right now. But they said they mailed them out in October of last year to let people know. Normally it's 30 to 60 days prior to a project starting.
Okay.
And if I may, Mayor, sorry, Mayor and Council, I'm not there. I had a sick child emergency. So, but Craig is correct. Myself and the city's engineers, we had a pre-construction meeting with representatives of consumers back at the early part of October. And so we were aware that the project was going to be happening, and we've been working actually with consumers for several months, knowing that this work was going to be occurring. We've been doing our best to coordinate their consumers' efforts in advance of our infrastructure project efforts. So we've been trying to work out this timeline for quite some time. And we did, like I said, we did have that pre-construction meeting at the early part of October. And I had confirmed with our main point of contact, Sherry Payne, that they had sent those letters and mailers out. So I know and that's a pretty standard, it's pretty standard for these types of projects. We've also had, they are also required to submit a bond for all project work to ensure that if any issues occur, unforeseen issues occur, we have the capability to seize that bond if we need to. It also helps to ensure that site restoration work, which is needed at these properties, will occur. So those are some of the elements that we have in play as well.
Thank you.
Question? Okay. What did we do then as a city to notify residents about this coming project?
This project has been discussed. I believe it was included in e-newsletters, but I can't say for certain about that. But the responsibility is on consumers to notify residents that the work is coming up, which is why we require them to do those mailings.
Right, I understand that, but it would have been nice if the city, if you knew about it, to communicate about it. So I'm not sure what kind of process we should put in place for future, because it's a pretty major project and a lot of people are complaining, so.
But you
Understood.
just
That,
said that
again,
we
that's
did
why
send
we have
something
them
out.
do the notice.
But didn't you just say we sent something out, you think, back in September, October?
I do believe it was at least in the e-newsletter. Again, I can't say
Okay.
for certain at this point, but I do believe it was at least communicated.
Okay.
And on my end, that lines up, Susie, thank you. That lines up with because Sherry is the one I actually contacted, because she is over this project. She is the one I contacted, and that's exactly what she said. And she said that after that early site meeting to coordinate the dates, that's when she mailed out the newsletter, or mailed out through consumers to the homeowners, that this is when we would be doing this project. Now, as far as the project goes, I'm going to let Matt or Ted speak on that. I know we're almost done, but I know you guys are looking for better than we're almost done as far as restoration, how much longer we have out there to work, and just the conditions that we've been in this year with the freeze, the thaw. And I had a field leader go out and drive it the other day, and I received 30 some photos from my field leader. So I do understand what kind of condition this is in. And I do understand how big of an inconvenience and muddy mess this has been. So I would like to apologize for that. But as far as specific dates, I'll let the contractors themselves speak onto the specific dates of the project. So Ted or Matt,
Yes, this is Ted Schauger speaking. So I'm with MUE as well. I'm the superintendent. So just so you know, we did have a meeting. We've done 5 streets, I think, over there. And we had a meeting with Scott Ringel with Giffel before we started these projects. But so the 4 streets are done. We still have one resident in California where he had passed away, and the family lives up in Grayling. So we're still waiting to make contact with them to finish the California project. So once we've reached them, we'll be able to go back in there, cut off the risers and bury. I think we got 1 hole left over there. The guys have been out there all last week trying to smooth things out, but it's just a wet area right there where seems like every time we try to get the backhoe off the road to do any kind of excavating, we just make a bigger mess. But yes, so we have the 1 customer left, and then we will make everything as safe as we can till warmer, drier weather so we can actually address the mud and the ruts and everything else. But we have been trying to smooth them out the best we can.
I appreciate that. And one, to make sure that this reiterated is that consumers is going to repair residents' property back to minimally the way that it was before their property was dug up.
Oh, for sure. And we did leave our phone number with every door hanger out there. So everybody does have our contact info.
So you're saying you went back out and gave everybody your phone number?
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
Tentatively, before we start, we try to put a door hanger on everybody's door so they don't calling you guys or Consumers Energy. They can call us.
Okay. And so just going forward, for Susie and Pam and Scott, just to make sure that we follow up to make sure that we continuously put something as big as this into the e-newsletter and in the newsletter, and then on the city Facebook, the City of Lathrup Village Facebook site.
And the website.
Yes, no problem. And we will definitely do that. I know that consumers will be doing several more projects in the coming years, I believe. I think it's a couple-year project at least. And I've already talked to Sherry about being more proactive, and they will, before they begin their next round of work, and I do not have those dates yet. Before they begin that next round of work, they will come and make a presentation towards council, and again, we'll do all those things that you just asked.
Okay, well, one thing is I wanted to say is that I appreciate you all coming on what might have been short notice. And I appreciate the apology. You know, of course, we did get inundated with concerns about the lawns, and to know that you all will be repairing them. And then just like I said, going forward, it's kind of just doubling back like you did this time, just to make sure that all the residents know about it. I can understand, and if this was in October and now we're in March, it could have been oversight also on maybe the residents' site too. But if we do it more than once, then, and make sure that we do on our ends that we are communicating to the residents, I think that we won't have any more issues like this. So thank you.
And one more thing I'd like to add, as far as they went out and hung the door hangers. So if you guys have the door hangers, if you could post something that if they actually call the door hangers, that they have the numbers on there directly for MUE for the restoration or those concerns, we receive those about 3 times faster than if they try to chase something down through Consumers Energy, or if they try to jump on Facebook and just post something that way. I understand people post what they want to post, but if they can call that number, that's a direct number to them. We can address their concern that day as far as listening to it and put a plan together to come out and fix anything right away for them. So it's a lot quicker than, because I've dealt with quite a few complaints where I've talked to 5 or 6 different people inside of Consumers and I couldn't get a hold of anybody, and I appreciate you calling me back and now you fixed it in 2 days. So just knowing that if they use that number versus running it around in our system, I know it can be a little complicated on where they want to report it to.
I got you.
And
And then also, can you provide that phone number to Pam Barachi,
Yes.
if you have it off the top of your head, or you can email her?
Yeah, I don't have it off the top of my head, but if we could email it.
Okay, that'd be great.
And if you could send a copy of that door hanger to the office, whether electronically or that would be helpful too. And I can even pop something in our, I mean, there was something in the e-newsletter this past Friday, but I can make sure it's again in the e-newsletter this Friday. So.
Wonderful. Any other questions?
Yes, I have a question. After the restoration work is done, what happens if people have complaints? Who do they go to? Or who's responsible for taking care of that?
Us, yes. MU, they can
Craig,
still contact us.
So my name is Matt Lewis. I'm from MUE as well, and I'm the manager of the area. We are a local company. We do care about making sure that this is taken care of. We're sorry that this came to you folks, but they can contact MUE directly, and we will take care of their concerns. We actually had a restoration superintendent actually go out there and also pass out his business cards so they call him direct to make sure that their problems are taken care of. So
The actual resident will actually get a phone call, get a card from the restoration company, and then they also, they still call the 800 number that will be posted in our e-newsletter and on our website and on the door hangers that the residents receive?
Yes, ma'am.
Any other questions? Thank you all so much for coming. We appreciate your time. I appreciate your time. And, we'll be in touch. I'll be in touch if we have any other issues.
Thank you.
Thank you.
all right, thank you.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, just to use that as a lead-in, as we approach the spring and the start of the construction season, we've got a lot of construction coming up this spring, summer, and fall. And the city engineer, along with Susie staff, are working on a communication plan to get out in front of it, and provide residents with information of this kind of thing, so they're aware that this kind of thing is going to continue to happen for the next several months, 6 months or so.
Now, this would be a good place to also say where Jalen was coming up with the text messaging idea for residents to kind of look at. I'm serious, I'm laughing, but I'm serious about going into that, because this would be a good idea, to be able to text, do text blast. Just trying to, exhaust all media opportunities, especially coming up in the spring. And I know there are a lot of construction issues going on, because the next company that needs to be here will be BTE.
I can start working with him on that.
Thank you.
Don't we have something that I get text messages all the time? What?
We do have a service through Revise. It's not as from what I've used of it so far, I don't think it's nearly as robust as maybe what we've talked about in the past for text messaging services. It is something at the bottom of our website, different on each page, there's an area for us do you want to send a text alert? So, generally I put a text alert for all changes to the news headlines. So, you can send text alerts. You just need to remember that they need to be, that you need to include some substance in there, right? But again, I don't think it's quite as robust as what we've talked about in the past.
And I believe Cheryl was looking into that about 6 months ago. I know I talked to her about it. Yeah, it's a much more robust system. And the Revise thing, it's hit or miss. Sometimes you get them, sometimes you don't. And even when you do get them, there's not a whole lot of information in them.
Right. Do we know if they have enhancements available?
Revise is not very, again, from what I've used of it so far, it's very limited. I mean, you can only put in, I think, 300 characters. You can't put some links in there. So you really need to be concise. Some of the other services that are just text message based can do a little bit more.
Eclipse also has a text messaging system.
Okay. But you'll work with, thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Next up is the PowerPoint presentation, Adam Thompson.
Great. So
Yeah, hey, we have PowerPoint here. Not sure how well you could hear us.
They can hear
Hear us
you in the
okay?
case.
Perfect. So we're Tower Point. I know that you guys have American Tower leasing some space on one of the properties. We are American Tower's largest leaseholder in the world. We've done about 7,000 of these cell site transactions. Largest private cell site lease company in the United States. And we work with similar leases where you guys lease space on a property. There's a big tower stuck in the ground. It lays out a tentative rental schedule to be received to the village. It mentions that tenant has one-sided 5-year options to stay or go, as well as a 30-day termination option per your original lease. So 30,000 foot view is we see that we will pay more money to pool risk with these niche leases than any other municipality or private property owner would probably pay. I think in this instance, based upon, I think the 2 tenants on the tower of $5,100 a month, we would likely be first paying $1.2 million to the village. It looks like there is also potentially $1,700 and change maybe coming on for Dish, which would then.
Adam, 1 second, are you showing a presentation right now?
Just a quick overview of the tower.
Are you showing it to us? Because we only see you all. That's what I'm just asking that.
Say that again, I'm sorry.
Are you actually doing a presentation or are you just, I mean, because we don't see anything but the 2 of you all.
Sure, I mean, we don't have a PowerPoint presentation.
I just want to make sure.
We're just starting off with the 30,000 foot view of your economics and kind of what's on the table. And then if you want to go back and get granular on any particular topic or have us generate a PowerPoint on some industry background or your financials or anything else you need, we're happy to go from there. But basically, simply put, that assuming that final Dish piece comes on, we would likely be paying the village $1.6 million guaranteed, along with any other revenue we bring on. So that's just kind of for starters. So with that, I don't know if you have any questions about anything in particular.
1.6 million guaranteed only if this, I want to make sure I heard it right. Only if this comes on.
So here's part of the question, if someone happens to know, is we were confirming the existing tower economics. And it seemed like one number may have indicated 5,100 and mentioned a piece for Dish. So Dish is a newer company that's really just rolling out right now. So it's very common where people are cities, schools, whoever, may be getting a certain rental portion associated with Dish, even though Dish may not yet be broadcasting with antennas on the physical structure. So physically looking from good old Google Maps, it appeared that there were 2 rungs on the tower. We understand that T-Mobile and AT&T were there. So the fact that there was a 3rd piece that was tied to Dish, I just would leap to the assumption that perhaps Dish is in the works of coming on, and that would then bring it to a grand total of, I guess, 5,100 plus 1,700. So assuming that, based upon the 5,100, we're already at $1.2 million assuming that that final and third 1,700 came on, proportionately speaking, same apples to apples, that would then bring to a grand total of a roughly $1.6 million. And if there was any other opportunities to get more revenue on, then, I mean, we're happy. I mean, we're in the business of pooling risk with cancelable sell lease cash flows and bringing on more cash flows to the property owner. So that's kind of the gist.
Pam, correct me if I'm wrong, but there's actually, there's four $1,700 payments that we're getting for that tower. We've got AT&T, T-Mobile, and Dish, and then we also have the $1,700 lease payment from American Tower.
Correct.
Sure. Yeah, and that
So
looked at, because right now we see two physical little, call them halos or little kind of rungs and antennas. So it does make sense that you would have a kind of a initial anchoring kind of very first ground lease that would be that 1,700 you indicated, as well as then maybe the leases itself for each tenant that came on. But I guess I know that AT&T and T-Mobile were there. I think even the something on one of the forms that you had received indicated AT&T and T-Mobile. But when you only see two tenants on there, I was just kind of a little bit, I didn't want to overpromise that Dish money, because I don't see a third Dish antenna on there. So I just assumed that maybe it was in the works. I'm not sure if you already know that they're already on there, or maybe Google Maps is outdated.
Don't know, but I guess we're getting payments that indicate that we're getting a $1,700 payment from Dish.
Sure, yeah, so based upon that cumulative 6,800 a month, that would be $1.6 million. But that's also why we have due diligence where we send out a photographer. They just kind of get the, up to speed, kind of a update as far as who's on there. But based upon 6,800, we will be paying the village $1.6 million.
And then would we continue? So I guess, well, I have to say 5 questions coming in my mind all at once. I guess first, can you step back and explain where you come into the picture? So, so you would act as an intermediary between us and American Tower, is that correct?
So in a sense, American Tower is already kind of an intermediary. And so you're right, I'm going to take this way. So now that we've kind of addressed the surface level terms, I agree it's good to kind of now just wrap our minds around the bigger picture, macro level idea here. So at the end of the day, you have carriers like AT&T and Verizon that actually beam signals to people's cell phones. American Tower does not beam signals to cell phones. They just essentially collect as much as they can from a mobile carrier, and they pay as little as possible to the property owner, and they make this sweet delta for quote unquote managing the tower, which means they're really managing it for the carrier against whoever owns the property, because they're not in the business of like publishers clearing. They don't show up to people's place with balloons and a big check saying we're doing an upgrade we're not supposed to. Here's $100,000, or hey, we want to pay you this big windfall, because they're in the business of, again, collecting as much as they can from the carrier, paying the city or the village or whoever as little as they can. But at the end of the day, you, American Tower, don't dictate how long or short any one carrier like AT&T or T-Mobile will need to broadcast at any one location. So, because companies like T-Mobile and Sprint merge, or Metro PCS and Crickets and the Singlers and all the other Nextels and things that are, so forth. We can go on forever. But moral of the story is that on one hand, these cash flows are very passive. They just show up in the mailbox. On the flip side, they're basically a month-to-month check that only goes for as long or as short as one carrier needs a certain location or a temporary technology, a way to 5G and 20G, and I don't know, like iPhone's only been around for 15 years, so who knows what the next 15 years will look like. But at the end of the day, to bring it all home, we say that, look, we are willing to pool risk with these, for instance, $6,800 check. We don't know, just like you don't know, and or anybody else knows, AT&T may come back in 2 years and say, hey, we have 7G. We could strap these things to telephone poles or utility lines, or it's wild to think what 10 years, we came from payphones, so it's really hard to predict the future, but we say, look, although we will pull risk and pay $1.6 million, that 1.6 that you are paid allows TowerPoint to collect an existing non-guaranteed check for as long or as short as it may be, with zero clue how long that will be. And once you've received your, in this instance, $1.6 million, that money can never be taken from you, whether or not the lease continues for 1 month, 1 year, 1 decade, whatever. So we say, look, although we inherit any sort of downside, because they could not renew, you could look at your lease. Page 1 says that it's just simply made up of 5-year options, where if it goes away, non-renews, that's just our cost of doing business. If there's ways for you guys to get more leases or more income, that's your money. We're happy to see if we can bring on more income. We'd love to do multiple transactions in the future, but simply put, you still remain the property owner. American Tower still owns the steel or manages it for the carrier. We simply enforce your rights and hold the American Tower to the rules and the rights that you've set forth on them per your lease, so you gain extra control of your property. We enforce the rules onto American Tower, because we do this all day, and you get paid a huge sum of money that we think that you probably wouldn't pay for $50 or $60, $700. So yeah, that's kind of the gist.
All right, and then the other question I had, just to confirm from when we talked a couple weeks ago, so we would still, so you would pay us so say the 1.6 million, but then as far as the revenue coming in from AT&T, T-Mobile, Dish, whoever's on there, did I remember this right, that then we would get half of that and you would get half of that? Or
So
how does that?
sort of additional revenue above the existing rental schedule. So I guess so to drive it home, if you were to receive this $1.6 million, TowerPoint's now collecting essentially a $6,800 check. And so whatever that sum would be. So I guess the way that I could kind of construe it is, for all I know, one of those $1,700 may come off at some point, and that doesn't change how much you've been paid. So although we inherit the downside, if we have, I don't know, Verizon or I don't know, like some other company that comes on, you would receive an equal share of any sort of additional revenue as a specific.
So that's additional above and beyond what we have today.
So correction here. So any additional leases that came on would be 100% yours. But we would be collecting the existing 68, I guess in this case, $6,800, and that's the 1.6.
Okay, so 0% of the existing, but anything new, we get 100%.
Correct.
And for how long is this?
So two answers to that. Based upon the $1.6 million, we would say that we would buy an interest in the lease for just as long or just as short as this may go for. We have no idea if that's 70 years or 70 months or 70 days. If you wanted to hedge your bets and say, look, we don't really have a use for 1.6, maybe we have a way to deploy effectively 1 million, for instance, but you don't want to sell it forever because you think the technology will still be relevant at year 35. Just to give an example here, I could say, look, rather than paying you $1.6 million, and that goes for 70 years or 70 days, we could say that we will instead pay you $1 million instead of 1.6, but if the lease happens to still be there at year, I don't know, year 25 or year 30 or something in that vicinity, it would come back to the village all over again, where you still get your money and there's a reversion date in the nearest future. Not to muddy the waters with too many options, but there are options to put a very nearer term cap on the purchase duration, if that makes sense. But usually people say, I don't think the technology, I think people will still have cell phones in 30 years, but the way that, you know, they have to have a metal stick in the ground generating 7,000 a month, maybe that's up for debate. And you would say, rather than leaving, in this example, $600,000 on the table for a chance it'll be there at year 30, maybe it's just wiser to deploy that money now, but that's to each their own.
How do you make, oh, sorry.
Go ahead, no, go ahead.
Then how do you make your money then?
Yeah, sure. Will we?
You're bad or?
Yeah, I mean, we're pulling risk. You know, in this instance, I think the way that the numbers broke down is that we would be essentially paying, not to dumb it down too much, but we'd be paying almost 20 years of the current annual revenue guaranteed for something that's not, I guess, guaranteed for any period of time. So I guess if this was a one-off, you know, would one group such as us, even though we have 7,000 of these, pay that much money for one? So that's a bigger valuation than actual brick and mortar real estate that will be there forever. So it really comes down to risk pooling for us, where some may go 10 years, some may go 40, some may go 5 months, some may go longer. So I guess our way to make money, that once you factor in all the overhead and everything else we're doing, we're really just doing our best to hope that at that point in the future, we will break even on some, and some others we won't. You know, I guess, you know, I wouldn't, like you or I wouldn't insure the 18-year-old Mustang driver, you know, his $100 premium for insurance, you know, when we know that if he drove it through a shopping center, you know, then you're gonna be out all that money. But if you were to have a large company with thousands and thousands and thousands of people, where we're just pulling the risk. Where is one site worth $1.6 million? Probably not. But if we have 7,000 of them, and we could actually use the power in numbers, where now American Tower, we have 4,000 of their locations. If they want upgrades from us, we may charge them for it. If maybe we could use 4,000, the power of numbers, to keep a site around a little bit longer than someone else could. That could be a situation. Maybe there could be some really crummy sites in Arkansas generating $500 a month on a tower, and it's coming expiration. We might have 4,000 other towers to say, well, you've had a free ride for $500 a month. Maybe it's time that you guys get it up to maybe something a little bit closer to, you know, the great rent that you guys get, so it can help bring under market leases to higher market leases. So those are just some of the reasons why we give more value.
So I'm having a hard time also trying to figure out how you make your money, because I'm no mathematician. However, just what we pay divided by what you're giving, you wouldn't get your money back from us until, like you said, it'll be 19 years and 6 months roughly.
Exactly.
So
Yeah, that was the exact.
So-
Yeah.
Okay. So then now it's making a little bit more sense. I'm still sitting here kind of, I was totally trying to figure out, not that, you know, I'm more concerned about the city than your company.
Yeah.
But the fact that this didn't make sense. And then, so also the fact is, when you were asked how long, are you saying that there's no contract that the city would sign for any amount of time?
So,
Or am I hearing that wrong?
sure. So I'll give you two examples here of the exact kind of quantifiable numbers that we're using here. So when we buy something, just like if you were to buy a, not to be cheesy with the analogy, but to paint a picture, I mean, we look at these cell site leases because it's for as long or short as the technology goes for. So similar as if you were buying a microwave or a refrigerator or a washer dryer. When you buy it, something that you know it's not going to run forever, you're going to go buy it, you own it forever, but you know that you're just going to, you know, one day it's not going to turn on anymore, and then it's just done. So we could categorize that or phrase it to say that we're buying this 30-day cancelable lease in perpetuity, where we're buying it for 99 years, or some way to represent that we buy it for as long or as short as it's there. But we include what's called an abandonment clause that says that regardless of any purchase term that we're applying, once the site goes away and it's no longer viable, our purchased interest just dissolves into thin air as if it never happened. the land is restored immediately. So we may do so just for the intents and purposes of you guys extracting the most amount of money, we may throw, 99 years or some large number just to capture to say that it's just for as long or as short as it's there. But if the site's gone in 3 years from now, our interest just goes away shortly after, and then you could put up, Jalen's Java, or you can put up whatever you want in that place where that site once was. And once telecom's gone, we're gone. It's not gonna last forever. But if you said, hey, there's a chance that it could run for 50 years, and I want to know that if it's there at that time, it comes back to the village again, then we could say, well, okay, look, and maybe, obviously the longer potential we buy it, the more money that we'll pay. And I guess that's not very profound. But if you wanted to put a maximum cap to say that your purchase may never, no matter what, go past 30 years, I could say, okay, well, maybe it's not 1.6, but it'll be 1.1 or something like that. And if it happens to still be there at year 30, then it comes back to you guys again. But I'm just speaking, just like the other offer that you received is just kind of forever, or how long it goes. I hope that helped a little bit.
I have another question. Then how does our using you rather than working directly with American Tower, how does that benefit us?
Sure. Well, I could kind of lay out the current paths that you have. Path number one is you have a lease that I think currently expires in about a year. Whether you extended, and I'm trying to drive home the point here, but whether you extended that lease for a year or for 1,000,000 years, if one of those carriers leaves in 6 months, $1,700 is gone. 2 carriers leaves, another 1,700, it's just gone forever. So I guess it's like, the $6,800 is great, but you just have to know that it's a smaller amount of money, and then every single time one carrier leaves, you lose $1,700 and it's gone forever. So that, whatever that rent is, it would have to go into $1.6 million a lot of times to add up to how much what we're paying. And I don't want to get into an inflationary conversation, but you also got to think, what's $1.6 million in hand today? Like, factoring in inflation, even if the rent goes up a little bit every year, 5 years, it's time value money. You'd have to collect a whole lot of checks to have that make sense. I guess and I guess option number 2, you can try to get a similar number out of American Tower, but keep in mind that number 1, if you were to do a deal with American Tower, right now they're the lessee, you're the lessor. There's a good, you have a lease that they got to follow rules. If they were to take over simultaneous lessee and lessor and put your existing lease that kind of keeps them honest, and that goes through a shredder, and they replace it with a much more cumbersome document over the property where all the things like about right now, they have to take down the tower and it's not being used. It becomes a very dicey situation where they have now that they would then control a lot of the interest over the property or power of attorney to file for permits. You would be on their phone number with a 1-800 phone number if their contractor does something. You'd be cut out of future opportunities. It would be a very large document that would be very bad, I think, for the city property. It's very different if we were to give you not only more money, but then we're actually holding them to the existing lease. We're seeing if there's ways to get more money out of them. And you actually, you would then, with PowerPoint, you would actually be a partner. If we could bring on another lease, you get the whole new lease. We would just love to buy it from you. If we're managing against American Tower, right now they do, let's say that they do an upgrade on your property right now. For one, you probably don't even know they're doing an upgrade. You wouldn't even know what the upgrade was. You wouldn't know what situations could be more money. You probably aren't experts in cellular. We have 4,000 of their sites. We know that if they're doing a certain upgrade, that it usually constitutes a $20,000 windfall or $500 additional a month, and that could be new money that the city can have. So I guess with our offer, we'll pay you more money, better for the property, and you'll actually have additional revenue opportunities rather than being cut out of it forever. So I guess that's my attempt at a 60-second kind of what the options are.
Were there any other questions? Okay, well, thank you for your presentation. I appreciate that.
Sure, yeah, if you want some PowerPoints or something else on any topics in particular, happy to do it. Just
That'd be
wanted to
great.
give a gist of the
Whole
number,
present-
how it works.
I mean, if you could send us a summarization of, I mean, I think we all took notes, but a summarization of what we just discussed, that would be great.
Perfect. Anything else?
I don't think so.
Okay, all right, well, I'm sure you'll have a question 5 minutes after you hang up, but I'm always happy to help.
So if, I'm just thinking out loud here, if we wanted to put an antenna on the tower, say for our police department, I think that's allowed under our existing lease, but if we were to sell it to them, then they would more than likely preclude us from doing things like that, correct?
Yeah, simply put, by Tower Point buying an interest in the lease, everything in the lease that exists now will continue to remain intact and will actually be a second layer to enforce those things. Our council here, we're like, the top council at T-Mobile and a lot of these carriers. So meaning to say, if there's anything allowed in your lease, just because we step into the shoes of the lease doesn't mean that we could get rid of it. We would just be enforcing the rights as the advocate of the village in addition to all the money. So you would be able to do any of that stuff would be fun.
Well, thank you again. We'll look forward to receiving the summary.
Perfect. Pleasure making your acquaintance.
Same here. Have a good evening. Next on the agenda would be the budget calendar.
Before we move on.
Oh, go ahead.
So I know in the last offer letter that American Power sent, they wanted us to let them know by 3:15, so I guess, Susie, we may have to ask for another extension to that, because we're gonna need to discuss what we want to do. What approach that we want to take, and I don't think we have a meeting between now and the 15th, so.
No, we don't. The next meeting.
No worries. I actually already spoke to Lorene from American Tower. Well, I guess I had to have been last week since it's only Monday. So I did talk to her and I let her know that that you had not yet made a decision, and that I was aware that it was the letter says the 15th, and she said that's no problem. She can override that date. And I did tell her that I had intentions of including this on your regular meeting agenda at the end of this month. So she seemed satisfied with the answer and assured me that there was no issues with that.
And there, for American Title, the tower, that was a buyout. Oops, that was a buyout without, we can't do anything else, right?
So they offered us a buyout or a continuation of the.
And the buyout was 1.8. It was 8.
It was 8.5 at one point.
Right.
That had a term limit.
Yeah.
This sounds like you're talking about.
Right, that's what I'm just trying to, I mean, I thought maybe we should kind of discuss about something.
60 years. So, I think, my perspective on it, and we have a discussion about it, if you want, but I would think you go back to American Tower and say, look, we've got your competitor, someone who's offering us 1.6.
Mhm.
If that's what the direction the city wants to go, is to want some up front.
Well, it's 1.6, and then if anyone else was going to get 100% of the new lease also.
Correct.
Where American Tower is saying this is 1.2 and we're done, nothing extra.
Well, and the difference is that these guys take on the risk.
Yeah.
Whereas if we go with American Tower, they've got a 30-day execution clause, so they can just say, we're done. T-Mobile left, we don't have anybody else for the tower, we're done, that's something wrong.
We don't get any more anyway.
I mean, outside of the lease, right? What they're obligated, if they sign a lease, they're obligated on the lease, so they're actually gonna be let off of the future payments if you do it month by month.
For the American Tower. I'm saying if we did the buyout for the American Tower, that's 1.2, you're done, nothing else. No, they're not doing extra, they're not doing the leases. Where this one is the 1.6, and then they're done unless, of course, there's someone new that comes onto the tower, then we'll get those proceeds. Now with American Tower, is that the same situation? We're just done, we do the buyout.
I think we're just done because with they said, we no longer get revenue from the carriers if we go with the buyout. It's their tower, we get the $1.2 million, we're done.
Okay.
Scott, doesn't their lease have a 30-day? I'd have to look at because the original lease, I don't believe it did. Yes, I'm old.
You're looking for the 30-day, what was it?
Maybe that can be verified by Scott
Yeah.
for the next meeting.
Yeah, I'll look for it.
But that's only what you're looking for, just to be, for my own clarity, is to say if we still continue with the lease portion of it.
We definitely will get the revenue from
Right.
the carrier.
Just, trying to discuss it through, kind of have some discussion around it. So, did you give, Susie, did you give her a date, or did you just say it's gonna be on our next, because I want to make sure that we're discussing it at the right time.
Right.
Like now.
I did not tell her specifically when discussion would occur, but I did tell her that I was intending to put it on the March, what is that, 21st agenda. So that's as specific as I got with her. It was the March 21st agenda.
I guess I'm just making sure that she's not expecting us to do an action item if we're not discussing it. We're kind of going through some discussion now, and that on March 21st, we have a discussion, and then we go into our meeting to do an action item. And I'm thinking that's a no, so we're looking, I'm thinking it's a no. So the actual action item should probably take place the third week in April. Just so there's enough time to discuss it once we know if there's a termination clause.
I didn't commit to having you have an action item on the 21st.
Okay, so I'm asking don't put an action item. Don't put an action item on the 21st.
All right, but I will leave for the purposes of the study session on the 21st. We'll have this as a discussion item again.
Absolutely.
And then we'll do the April action item.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Any other discussion around this? All right, now we'll go to the budget calendar.
All right. Hold on, let me finish my note because this one's me. And it's a really simple question. We are speaking of April and May, we are gonna need to, you all will need to have some special budget meetings and budget hearings. I would like to have a tentative calendar available to share with you. But instead of just pulling random dates out of my hat. I'd like to know if there's certain days of the week that may be good for you as a group to schedule these meetings. Obviously, Mondays are good for council meeting dates. I don't know if you want to continue to try and meet on your quote unquote off Mondays, or if there's another day of the week or two that I should be looking at as I'm looking at the calendar.
You said in April?
April, I imagine we'll need a couple dates in April, a couple dates in May, and maybe even one in June. I do need to look back at what was done last year in terms of how many special meetings, but I'm just looking for just a little bit of direction on days of the week that work best for council.
We also have MML dates of research.
And I would include those in an overall calendar. I think that it'd be helpful for me. And if it's helpful for me, I bet it's helpful for you.
For me, keeping it as on a Monday would be.
Mondays.
For me, that's
Okay.
really what I'm suggesting for.
And I would keep it around the study session times 6.
You're
Anyone
asking us, right?
Yes, please. Anyone else?
I have no problem.
Okay.
Looks like we only have one open window in May.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Looks like we only have one open Monday in May. We have a studies session on the 2nd. A meeting on the 16th. Probably 9th and the 23rd. Well, the 30th is Memorial Day, so that's out. Why did we change our regular meeting then? Wasn't because of holidays. Oh, okay.
So Mondays are the general day of the week that everyone's good with.
I am.
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, if you have to, I think if we get closer to the time, it will be a little easier, give you better days or more.
So that's about the schedule soon though.
Yeah, I mean, I would like to, I understand what you're saying, Councilman Jennings. I think that knowing that these, particularly for the budget, I mean, there will be no other agenda items on these meetings, just, budget meetings, to keep us focused. So I just want to make sure that we have, I mean, those are going to be very important as we move forward in the timeline of things. So I just want to make sure we have that schedule set and we're not hurting any cats. Okay.
Monday.
All right.
I'm good with the Mondays.
Mondays, when?
Well, I'm like I said, I'm going to try and keep it to the established schedule 6, 7:30 if that's what needs to happen. But I'll send out. This gives me some direction, so I'll put together a tentative calendar for you all to take a look at before anything before I ask you to actually schedule them, and we can figure out any conflicts, we can work around that.
Okay.
And I'll have this ready for you at the end of the month,
Okay.
or the 21st, sorry. And that's all I had.
Thank you very much. Next, we have public comment, and from what I see, there is no public here. On Zoom, can you check to see if there's anybody in the audience that happens to be in the other room? Thank you. Oh, I went out of place. I'm so sorry. Mayor and council comments. I don't have any comments. Let me- Yes, I do. Sorry. The next one would be DTE. I'm not sure if anybody else is really having this problem. If no one else is having problems with DTE running over the grass and putting ruts in the lawn, then I will call them myself. But I know I've talked to Susie before about it because it's gotten a little worse along Santa Barbara from what I saw.
I haven't gotten any additional comments after our conversations, but I would certainly encourage you and any residents that may watch this in the future. Anytime we have issues with contractors, please try to get a photo of them in action too, because that really helps us go back when they say, oh, it wasn't us. We're like, yeah, it was. So, whether or not, I know it's hard to get that action shot, right? Like, that's not what you're thinking of when it's happening or after the fact, but just reminding everyone to check, if you've got a Ring doorbell or something like that, see if you can pull an image off of that too. That helps us as we go forward, but we can certainly bring DTE.
Okay. Well, I mean,
I would certainly ask.
It's just my issue, so I can reach out to Jennifer myself for that. Council comments. Any?
No.
No? Oh, well, then I will entertain a motion to, let me get it out, a motion to adjourn. Thank you for joining. You all have a great evening.
Have a great night. Thank you.